Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy. And then I started seeing it everywhere I looked. Everywhere I looked, all these fucking pricks. Everywhere I looked, doing the exact same fucking thing over and over and over and over and over again, thinking this time he's going to be different. No, please. This time he's going to be different. I'm sorry. I don't like the way you are looking at me. Okay?
Yo, it's your boy Logos, and today I want to react to a YouTube channel that I discovered within the past 6 months. The Critical Drinker. He does TV show and movie reviews similar to Jeremy Johns, who I've been watching also since like 2015, 2016 or so. I like his content, The Critical Drinker, because he goes deeper into it and talks about the motives behind some of the media that they put out now, especially from Netflix and Disney. And I made it abundantly clear in my last video talking about Cleopatra yesterday. I'm not a fan of it. It's not a documentary. It's a fan fiction film. And in my opinion, it's not even that good of a one because the story is jumping all over the place. The quote unquote experts have very biased opinions and they say that from jump. And at the end, they even go deeper into it, saying they try to do this for like women. And it's clearly not about telling history. It's not about telling the story of Cleopatra. They don't even reference Marcus Agrippa when they talk about the Battle of Actium, which is a very, very important person because that's the person that fought most of Octavian's battles. Octavian was the political genius. Marcus Agrippa was a military genius. He fought at Actium. He fought against many other battles on the behalf of Octavian. And the fact they don't even mention him at all in this documentary is an absolute travesty in my opinion. Marcus Agrippa already doesn't give enough attention. He doesn't receive enough attention that he deserves for all the stuff that he did. But at the same time, if you're going to say you're going to do a documentary on this era of Roman, Egyptian, and Greek history, how it all coalesces, you have to mention these important events. You have to get these details right. And they absolutely did not do that in this series. They couldn't even get Pompey's death right. They showed him getting decapitated in like a jail cell. But in real life, he got decapitated on the beach in front of his wife and entourage. And that shit was very traumatic. That stuff is worth putting in the film because that's the actual story. And if you want to talk about the brutality of the ancient world, that is a perfect example showing why. But they don't do that. They just focus on the narrative and paint it the worst way possible, in my opinion. But let's see what the Critical Drinker got to say.
We live in a divided world, dear viewer. It seems like even the most innocuous subjects or the most fundamental aspects of reality are now subject to constant debate and contention. And nowhere is that division more obvious than in the world of media, where every new movie and TV show becomes a battleground between warring factions, each determined to prove that they're in the right. But sometimes, just sometimes, a project comes along that's so monumentally, epically, and comprehensively terrible that it manages to unite the entire world in absolute contempt.
Yep.
It happened before with Santa Inc., a theoretical comedy made by two talentless, mean-spirited hacks posing as comedians who haven't actually produced anything remotely funny in more than a decade, which tried to use feminism and identity politics to attack the literal personification of goodwill and generosity at Christmas time, no less.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And it seems to be happening again with the release of Queen Cleopatra, a Netflix documentary series produced by one of the least popular actresses in Hollywood. And that's saying something, believe me. Centered around female African rulers throughout history. I mean, calling it a documentary is a bit like calling Inglourious Bastards a historically accurate depiction of World War II, but don't worry, we'll get back to that soon enough.
Somebody in the comments of this video said that calling this, I don't know, series a documentary is like calling Jada Pinkett Smith a nice, loving, understanding wife. And she is a complete opposite of all those things. and she's the complete opposite of honest when she did this fan fiction.
Believe that! Anyway, the show kicked up a firestorm of controversy and backlash, earned itself the lowest rating that I've ever personally seen on Rotten Tomatoes, and even managed to get itself sued on behalf of the entire country of Egypt. Damn man, this thing's about as popular as the salad bar at Lizzo's birthday party. So why are people so fucking mad about this thing anyway? Well, the main criticism centres around the recasting of Cleopatra. Sorry, reimagining, because I guess that's what we call it now when we blatantly try to rewrite verified historical facts to suit our own 21st century narrative and gaslight anyone who calls us out on our bullshit as hateful bigots. Kind of like how the Woman King tried to reimagine a brutal expansionist military dictatorship who massacred entire communities and happily sold their own people into slavery as a progressive and enlightened society to be cherished and protected, and a unit of female warriors who once lost more than 500 troops to kill a grand total of 6 French soldiers as an elite fighting force that would make the Avengers shit themselves in absolute terror.
I think I can smell shite.
You know, it's always funny watching Hollywood activists combing the pages of history in search of some hidden truth that'll finally validate all their long-standing biases and personal hang-ups, and when they inevitably come up short, just kind of throwing up their hands and saying, fuck it, we'll just make it up instead. Sorry, reimagine it. The thing is, works of historical fiction like The Woman King, or Braveheart, or 300 generally get cut a bit of slack because, well, the clue's in the name. They're works of fiction. Yeah, fiction based on real events, very loosely in some cases, but fiction all the same. I'm not a huge fan of it myself because I know how many people can be misled by stuff like this, but hey, I also wasn't born yesterday. Real history is often muddy and complex and doesn't deliver the big, satisfying emotional payoffs that people expect from movies. Telling compelling stories that people want to see sometimes means bending and embellishing the truth. Documentaries are a very different beast though, because the whole point is to give the audience an accurate and unbiased insight into real events, backed up by facts and evidence from eyewitnesses and experts in the relevant fields. Their very purpose is to separate fact from fiction and delve deeper into the actual reality behind the myths and commonly held beliefs. And that's where Cleopatra runs into a spot of trouble, because the whole motivation of this show seems to be the exact opposite. It's there to bend and distort reality, to turn her into something she absolutely wasn't, in order to fit the narrative of the showrunners. See, the stated goal of the African Queens series is to shed light on important black female rulers throughout history, unknown and overlooked people who actually had a big impact on the world. As producer Jada Pinkett Smith said, we don't often get to see or hear stories about black queens, and that was really important for me, as well as for my daughter, and just for the community to be able to know those stories because there's tons of them. Fair play Jada, I can totally get behind that one. After all, there's plenty of historical people and events that haven't had the mainstream attention that they deserve. The problem I suspect they ran into with this one is that female rulers of organised nation states in sub-Saharan Africa that had a major and lasting impact on world history are probably a bit thin on the grounds. And rather than dig deeper to find more obscure figures that might not have mainstream appeal, they just decided, fuck it, we'll just take Cleopatra and make her ours now.
Exactly.
Fuck. Because everyone knows about Cleopatra, right? She's the kind of name that'll bring your series a lot of attention. And if you can somehow convince enough people that she was actually black all along, then you'll earn yourself a lot of praise from your big friends in Hollywood. Because after all, how do we really know what Cleopatra looked like? It's not like her Macedonian Greek heritage was a well-documented matter of verified historical record, or that we have countless portraits, statues, busts, friezes, and even coins with her face on them, all depicting her with classical Greek facial features. Oh,
see, I didn't know that the critical drinker was like very knowledgeable on history, but I'm so glad that he is because he has a very big audience, so he can give all the facts I was talking about in my video to much more broader on the range of people. Because he's right, we have all this evidence of who Cleopatra was, her lineage, her father, grandfather going up to Ptolemy II, Ptolemy I. You can't tell me that Alexander the Great didn't exist. By saying that, you're ignoring all the Syrian, all the Egyptian, all the Anatolian history and artifacts that is clear evidence that Alexander the Great existed. And if he existed, we also know the Diadochi existed because we have Ptolemy, we have Seleucus, we have I think Lysimachus, we have other generals part of the Diadochi that had their own minor kingdoms or semi-minor kingdoms, depending on how much territory they had after Alexander the Great's death. So this whole thing with Cleopatra just never made sense to me because I've had to hear this nonsense for years and years and years, even before I got deep into history like I did about 5 or 6 years ago. I have to debate people back in middle school or high school about Cleopatra being black. People that don't even give a damn about history. People that don't even pay attention during history class trying to debate me about Greek and Roman and Egyptian history. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It just showed their ignorance. And at the very start, I don't think he's gonna show it, but even in the trailer, the older black woman that was a quote unquote expert said her mother or grandmother told her, I don't care what they teach her in school, Cleopatra was black. That tells me everything I need to know. You and your grandma, mother, whoever don't care about facts. They just care about what makes them feel good. And you're ignorant. And I'm sorry to say that about an elder, but I'm not going to just lie and go along with your BS because you're older than me. It's just straight up nonsense.
Oh wait. But hey, maybe they've got some awesome new evidence that's just come to light, or compelling testimony from respected figures in their fields.
Nope.
I imagine her to have curly hair like me and a similar skin colour.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
Well, if you're
Okay, I'm so glad he played it because I wasn't sure if he would or not, but that's not how history works. You don't say, I want somebody to look like this because it makes me feel better and I imagine them that way, so that's the way they are. This is a real person. You can't just change them to make yourself feel better. It's crazy.
your senile old gran reckons that a Ptolemaic ruler born thousands of years before her lifetime was black, then I'm convinced.
Yes, I can definitely smell shite.
But it really gives you an insight into the mindset of the showrunners on this one. The childly simplistic idea that if you choose to believe in something, then it just magically becomes the truth, even if all the evidence at your disposal says the exact opposite. It's the same reason that I'm not actually 200 feet tall and made out of solid gold. Shit man, even the Egyptians have gone to war against this thing. The head of the Supreme Council for Antiquities, Mustafa Waziri, said that calling Cleopatra black would be a falsification of Egyptian history, and that Netflix is trying to stir up confusion to spread false information that the origin of Egyptian civilization is black. See, that's the problem with trying to appropriate an actual documented historical figure and pass off your bullshit wish fulfillment fantasy as a legit, unbiased documentary. You really have to provide receipts to back it up, and if the best you can come up with is, my gran told me to believe a comforting lie to make me feel better about myself, then funnily enough, people are going to push back against it. So how do you think the showrunners reacted to this backlash? Did they take this criticism on the chin, acknowledge the complaints, and apologise for any offence caused?
Nope.
You serious?
Well, not really, no. Why shouldn't Cleopatra be a melanated sister? Series director Tina Garavi asks. And why do some people need Cleopatra to be white? Her proximity to whiteness seems to give her value, and for some Egyptians, it seems to really matter. No.
I'm sorry, but that is just straight up ignorance and gaslighting. You're changing a historical person that actually existed to warp your own worldview. And you talking about something she close to whiteness, this and other. She is Greek. She is Greek. When she was around, she had no concept of race the same way we have today. This is why you do not debate or let people that are not honest with you direct or talk about historical stuff, because they're not even honest when it comes to the conversation. They want to change facts and change reality to fit their own ideology or agenda, and I'm not a fan of that. If you really care about black African queens, give a fuck enough to deep dive into the research and tell some interesting stories about people that people don't really know about. For example, how about Cleopatra's own daughter? I can't remember her exact full name, but I know it ends with Selene. Selene, from my knowledge, became a queen of Mauritania, and she was actually a queen that lasted for a very long time and didn't have to, I wouldn't say she had to like give in to Rome because Rome could walk in and kick their ass at any time they wanted. But she was a powerful ruler in her own right, and you don't have to have this debate back and forth about her race. She could just be another African queen that people can be inspired by because she was a good ruler. I have no problem with women getting time and attention in media. I only have a problem with when they try to warp the truth or warp evidence or facts to push a narrative. That's not honest in my opinion.
Kidding, Tina. I suspect it does matter that you're trying to rewrite their own history for them and project 21st century American ideals onto something that you've got little or no understanding of. It's not just that I've directed a series that portrays Cleopatra as black and that I've asked Egyptians to see themselves as Africans and they're furious at me for that. I'm okay with this. Well, as long as you're okay with it, then I guess that's just fine. Never mind that you've insulted the cultural heritage of more than 100 million Egyptians and turned pretty much the entire internet against you and your shitty projects. The only thing that truly matters is what you want, what makes you happy, the truth that you choose to believe. You know, I'm trying to think of a phrase that best sums up this kind of mindset.
Sheer fucking hubris.
Nah, I've got nothing. So, was Cleopatra black? We don't know for sure, but we can be certain that she wasn't white like Elizabeth Taylor. We need to have a conversation with ourselves about our colorism and the internalized white supremacy that Hollywood has indoctrinated us with.
Oh,
come on! See, I can tell what you're trying to do here. You're trying to equate two very different things in order to deflect the entire question away from yourself.
Exactly.
So what if my supposed documentary that claims to be based on hard scientific facts is actually wildly inaccurate nonsense with no basis in reality? This fictional movie that I saw from half a century ago was also wrong, so that makes it totally okay. No, it doesn't. John Wayne playing Genghis Khan in The Conqueror was also ridiculous Hollywood nonsense from a different era of filmmaking, but if you tried to make a factual documentary now claiming that Genghis Khan was actually a black man because we don't know for sure what he actually looked like, then you'd rightfully piss off the whole of Mongolia in the process. The point I'm making here is that nobody's buying the bullshit you're desperately trying to sell them, and you don't just get to use racism as a magical shield to deflect any criticism that comes your way. The fact is, you made something that you knew was a lie, that you tried to pass off as the truth, because you exist in the kind of bubble where everyone's fantasy becomes their own unique reality and nobody questions it, and so you just assume that the rest of the world thinks the same way. And when you got the hard reality check that you absolutely deserved, you fell back on the same tired excuses that get rolled out anytime a lazy race-swapped Hollywood production comes under fire. It didn't work back then, and it's certainly not going to work for you now. But hey, maybe Cleopatra can serve as a lesson for future generations of documentary makers, that what we want to be true is often very different from what's actually true, and if you can't deal with that, then maybe you shouldn't be making them in the first place. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
In my opinion, I think the critical drinker was speaking straight facts. They didn't care about history, they didn't care about the evidence, they didn't care about the information. They just wanted to push a narrative that Cleopatra was black and it's supposed to be about women empowerment. Instead of highlighting women that it has actually big impact in African history, they chose a person that is clearly shown to be Greek with an abundance of evidence to be Greek, and they changed her all up to make her fit their description, their fantasy. This is not a documentary. This is a fan fiction that you will find on some type of, I don't know, online website. This is a joke. And Netflix is a joke for producing this and giving this money. I don't know how much money they spend on these sets, on these costumes, because they look pretty decent. But at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that the core of it all, because it's a documentary, it's supposed to be educational, the core of it is dog shit. The experts are trash. They're biased, and even though some of them might be elders, some of them might be people that in a normal conversation not about Cleopatra I would have great respect for and listen to, I'm not going to listen to them about this because they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and it is clear and evident. It's crazy to me, really, that this whole narrative takes place, and I have to talk about it over and over and over again, but it's fine. This is my favorite era of Roman history, and I love history in general. So being able to debate this stuff or talk about it is just funny and enjoyable for me. So let me know what you think about it. I'll leave the link to my video about this whole fake series, fake documentary, and description down below. Like, share, and subscribe. It's your boy Logos, and I'll see you next time. Peace.